The country marks a full year since the establishment of the national coalition dubbed the Government of National Unity this week. The GNU was formed following the 2024 May polls where the ANC dipped to 40% of the country's national vote. To unpack how far the country has come since the national coalition, we now speak to political analyst Prof Bheki Mngomezulu on the matter, and he joins us now via our video link. Prof, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. I mean, let's start off here. It's been a year now since we're seeing this national coalition, and some may argue that it's not a government of national unity, and indeed it is a coalition. But looking at a year in, how would you say this coalition has fared so far?
Thank you, Simbali, for having me, and good evening to your viewers. I'm glad that we are calling this what it is, which is a coalition government and not necessarily a government of national unity, as most people would like to call it. But to answer our question, I think that this is a learning curve for South Africa, in the sense that we have never had a government of national unity, as they call it, or a coalition government in the post-1994 political dispensation. So it's been a learning curve, both from President Ramaphosa and his party, that is from the ANC side, which is leading the coalition, and also from the DA, which has been the opposition party until the sixth administration. There is what I have referred to as an identity crisis, in the sense that the ANC would behave as though it is still the governing party, and the DA also behaves as though it is still the opposition party, which is not the case, because all 10 political parties are part of the coalition. And then, of course, in terms of service delivery, there's been an attempt to try and deliver services to the people of South Africa, but we are not where we're supposed to be, and we're not out of the woods yet. For the same reason that I've mentioned, that there is an identity crisis. You see some ministers behaving as though they are representing their own political parties, when in fact the Constitution empowers a sitting president, in this case President Cyril Ramaphosa, to appoint members of parliament to be members of the executive, in other words, to be ministers and deputy ministers. So whatever you are doing, you are not doing it for the party, but you are doing it for the country. Looking at the crime levels, looking at the state of the economy of the country, and many other issues, including, of course, this issue of energy crisis, I would say that we're not out of the woods yet. With or without this coalition, we still have a long way to go.
And I mean, Professor, the writing was always on the wall, and we're told that, as time goes on, we will find ourselves in a coalition on a national level. And I mean, the 2024 elections brought about that, right? And when you look at, this, government of national unity, or the GNU, would you say that it is working? When you look at the criticism that you have brought in, saying that it has an identity crisis, despite this identity crisis, is this working for South Africans?
Ideally, it's supposed to work, my sister, because you no longer have one government, one party running government. In the past, we used to have a January 8 statement, and that was the ANC event. Then we would have an ANC Lekgotla, it was an ANC event. Then we would have a cabinet Lekgotla, which was also an ANC event. Then eventually, you would have the State of the Nation address. What is happening right now, you only have the January 8 statement as the ANC event. And then, of course, you will still have the ANC Lekgotla. But when it comes to Cabinet Lekgotla, it's no longer the ANC alone, it's the ANC together with the other 9 political parties. So ideally, it's supposed to work. But because this coalition government was built on a shaky foundation, it is bound to have many problems. You would have heard recently when CNN is on record saying that the only reason they joined this coalition government was to keep the EFF and the MK party out of parliament, or out of the union buildings, to use his own words. Already you have a problem there, that you are not putting the interests of the country first, but you are putting your own personal interests or party interests above those of the nation. So therefore, it's bound to have problems then in that regard. I would say that if it was built on a strong foundation, it's supposed to have worked well, because if you're a minister and I'm the deputy minister, we'll be watching each other, and therefore service delivery will benefit. But we don't see that happening, because there is a trust deficit amongst members of the executive And then the same applies also when it goes to the National Assembly. So we have a problem, my sister, I must say.
And Prof, I mean, we've seen many challenges with this government of national unity, and one thing that sticks out is the issue around the budget. I mean, there was a lot of difficulty trying to pass this budget, and we've seen it now being presented by the finance minister at least 3 times. When you look at, some of the challenges of this government of national unity, would you say that perhaps the worst is over?
In fact, we have just started. The worst is yet to come. Because given the turn of events, I don't see us getting out of this coalition government, particularly because the ANC, which has been the majority since 1994, its support is dwindling significantly. And then the DA, which has been the opposition political party until the 6th administration, its support is not growing enough for it to be able to replace the ANC. Then we still have the EFF, which has been the 3rd largest party since it joined the national government in 2014. But then its support also went down last year. So given those factors, then we are set for another coalition. But then I hope that there will be political maturity amongst our leaders so that they know how to run a coalition. At the moment, we don't seem to have a clue. I made a statement, for instance, after the president presented the January 8th statement, wherein he said that even though we're in a coalition government, the ANC is still in charge. And the reasons he provided was that the president comes from the ANC, which is factually correct. The deputy president comes from the ANC, which is factually correct. The majority of the ministers come from the ANC, and the majority of the deputy ministers come from the ANC. But that is not how you run a coalition government. So then I would think that going forward, if we draw lessons from this coalition, then we'll do better next time. But from the look of things, if we're not prepared to learn, then it means that the worst is yet to come.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time. That's Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, political analyst there, just giving us his insight when it comes to the government of national unity a year on.